What's up, guys? Gun here. In this video, we're going to discuss the DraftKings running back position, and I actually mean discuss. I'm going to talk about a lot more names than I have been during these videos because I actually feel like running back is extremely tough this week. It's a lot of uncomfortable decisions, a lot of uncomfortable clicking, uncomfortable fading. And I didn't feel like there was three guys I could easily lock in on without explaining thoughts on other guys. So how about we discuss a couple of these guys, and you guys tell me your thoughts in the comments below as well. And while you do leave yourself a comment below, you'll be entered into a $25 PayPal drawing that we'll do in the Week 5 review video that you should expect Monday or Tuesday. Everybody's happy, right? Hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up. We have the lowest VIP subscription pricing ever. Half off the NBA pricing until NBA gets here. $15 a week, $30 for 2 weeks, and $50 a month. Those are literally going to double in 3 weeks. And the reason being is because we just have NFL, or I just have NFL, so I get to take a little bit of time off, but I didn't want to charge people full price for service that's not full service, right? So if you guys are looking to make yourself at home into a new community, or even try it out, you're just like, man, am I even going to like these people? I don't want to give them 25, $30. Well, now's a good time to figure it out, because while I cover NFL on the weekends, these guys in the chat, including myself, we're going to be playing a whole lot of other DFS sports. Hockey tonight. We've got cats in there grinding soccer, tennis, League of Legends, League of Legends, WNBA. We'll have MLB Showdown. They're still doing it all. So if you guys have some thoughts on some of those sports, you could share your ideas, bounce them off of other people. And then, of course, if you're just looking to network a little bit within the DFS community, it's a great time to do so. It really is. And I'll have a lot more free time in the next 2 weeks or so. So if you guys ever wanted to discuss some strategy or some thoughts on how you should be allocating your DFS, whether it be bankroll or your contest or whatever, something like that, I'm glad to help out, especially in the next couple weeks. So come be part of the RunDFS.com VIP community. Get in the RunDFS.com Discord. Discord is a must for this NBA season. It's a grind. You're going to need a team with the ear to the ground, looking for news, breaking news, and working together. So let's get that out the way. Let's talk about the running back position at DraftKings. The top is the top. Christian McCaffrey, $8,700, had 37 touches last week, caught all 10 of his targets. Big day for him. He put up 33.9 fantasy points. He was not far from having 100 rushing yards, 100 receiving yards. That would have been another 6 points. This man could have had a 40 bomb. That's 3 out of 4 games thus far. He's exceeded the 30 DKP threshold. A lot of people are going to be looking for a lot of ways to get him into your fantasy lineups. We'll talk about matchups here. We'll look at matchups. The Jaguars have been the 4th worst matchup from a DraftKings points per game standpoint to opposing running backs. But CMC is CMC. He's in his own world, and this is where what I was alluding to earlier in the video, where I said you're going to make a lot of uncomfortable decisions that either make sense or don't make sense from a matchup standpoint. 5 weeks or 4 weeks of sample size for a lot of stats is still a small sample size, and that's the tricky part of NFL. Even 16 games is arguably not a great sample size, because you got to consider matchups. You got to consider who's on other teams and how those teams use their players, game scripts, all that stuff. It's not quite like baseball or basketball, where you can quantify it over minutes, over 82 games, over 162 games. It's just what we got to work with. So looking at the top of the running back pricing tree, Christian McCaffrey is $100 more than Alvin Kamara, who's $200 more than Dalvin Cook. If we go by stats, CMC and Alvin Kamara don't have great matchups on paper. Matter of fact, the Buccaneers, who come into New Orleans, have allowed the second fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs through 4 weeks, and have allowed the second or the third fewest rushing yards through 3 weeks with just a 55% catch rate, the lowest catch rate amongst receiving running backs in the NFL. 29 targets is your sample size there. That is all very alarming for Alvin Kamara, who is one of the most skilled players at his position. So much like CMC, a tough matchup. So if we're paying for these guys, we're paying for volume, we're paying and betting on talent. So uncomfortable clicks. Dalvin Cook feels a little bit more comfortable than if you just took names out of the equation, right? Dalvin Cook, blank face, blank name versus Kamara, blank face, blank name versus CMC, blank face, blank name. You probably walk away with Cook 95% of the time. He's been the backbone of this Vikings offense. He has essentially scored 29, 31, 27 in his first 3 weeks. And then last week, with a 70 all-purpose yards and the toughest matchup you could probably ask for, Bears on the road, 19 fantasy points. So he's another guy that kind of sticks out out of this top core here. And then you got Ezekiel Elliott, also above 8K. The carries have been there. The usage has been there. Last week, 17.5 fantasy points. He hasn't broken a slate yet, but we're starting to see his touches ramp up. We're starting to see his involvement ramp up. And most encouraging last week, 7 targets out of the backfield. And that is huge, as that was a big catalyst in Ezekiel Elliott being a top fantasy play week to week last season, and not something we had saw the first 3 weeks. So as Michael Gallup and Devin Smith deal with injuries, Ezekiel Elliott might be forced to even assume more pass catching duties. Let's talk about Ezekiel Elliott's matchup. The Packers allowed the second most rushing yards per game thus far, 5 rushing touchdowns, 35.6 fantasy points per game. That's third most in the NFL. So if we're looking at AK and above and we're playing the matchup chart, connecting the dots here, Ezekiel Elliott has the better matchup. But compared to Cook, Kamara, and McCaffrey, has had the fewest fantasy points per game. So it's not an easy choice. It's not easy decisions. I kind of like Dalvin Cook quite a bit here. And then Zeke at home makes a ton of sense. But, man, I want to know what you guys are doing with CMC and Alvin Kamara. Do you just click CMC in your lines, right? Do you just play the man? He's going to do it all. He's matchup proof despite what the stats say. Is that where we're at? And at 8,700, where do we start regretting not playing him? So running back, extremely tough. Keeping it moving. Let's talk about probably my favorite points per dollar running back play, David Johnson. 7,500. I liked him a lot last week, and I was happy with his result. 21.9 fantasy points. David Johnson is essentially a wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals top 4 in pass percentage. This guy, 11 targets last week, 9 targets the week prior, 7 targets in week 1. I'm not going to hold Baltimore on the road against him. I think that was a tough spot to be in. And now we're back on the road, and you can argue that the Cardinals on the road outside of a dome in the elements will likely struggle a little bit more. I think that's fine, but I'm not going to give up on David Johnson just yet. 7,500, I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone just because PPR gives him such a high floor. When we go look at running back points per game here, the Cincinnati Bengals have given up the most points per game to opposing running backs. You guys saw what Jalen Samuels and James Conner were able to do on Monday Night Football. They're allowing an 88.2% catch rate on to opposing running backs. Now, David Johnson's going to line up in a slot quite a bit and just be a wide out for what it's worth, but it's still nonetheless encouraging that this is a great matchup for him. So I like him points per dollar. I think he, volume-wise, is the safest, is a extremely safe option that really can't get game scripted out. If they're playing with a lead, he runs. If they're playing from behind or a neutral game script, he's going to have plenty of targets here. So give me some David Johnson, 7,500. He's the poster boy of this video because he's the only guy I feel comfortable clicking. He really is. Keeping it moving. Melvin Gordon's back, so that's going to interfere with Austin Eckler a little bit. I think it's reasonable to suspect Eckler could still be the heavy man on the seesaw going forward, at least until Melvin Gordon gets fully ramped up here. So I'm going to probably stay away from both of them and just hope they eat at each other just enough that I don't regret life. So tough decisions there. Le'Veon Bell, very interesting. But the Philadelphia Eagles, much like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, have typically been a funnel defense where they're good against the run. 18.4 DraftKings points per game thus far to opposing running backs, allowing just 188 rushing yards. It's the second best mark in football. This is a one-dimensional Jets offense struggling at the quarterback position. So it's not a great matchup for Bell, but much like those 8K peers of his, he's the usage guy. He's going to be heavily involved one way or the other. 18, 21, 17 carries in his first 3 games and plenty of targets out the backfield, 9, 10, and 4. New England focused on him. He was their number one weapon. You know, New England has a history of shutting down number one weapon. This would be an ugly, slow burn kind of play for me. But at sub 7K, do I think 20-plus fantasy points is something that's in earshot of Lev Bell? I do, and I think it could be more of a PPR type thing, especially like late in the game if we expect the Eagles to be playing with a lead. Defense is good enough to maybe steal the ball once or twice from Carson Wentz, who has been struggling out the gate, to put the Jets in positive field position. So if he can fall into the end zone, which he has only done once thus far, and that was against the Buffalo Bills, I think at 6,800, a range of outcome where Le'Veon Bell drops 20 fantasy points is there. Now let's talk about Leonard Fournette. Broke the slate last week, 200-plus rushing yards after the week prior having one rush that was worth more than his total day's work. 29 fantasy points there. Did not get in the end zone. He actually has not gotten the end zone yet this season. Had an 81-yard rush last week. He has kind of the David Johnson appeal to me because in games where they're trailing, he's been getting plenty of targets. Prior to last week, 6 targets. That's enough for me to start with, especially at 6,400. And then if games that they are neutral or winning, they want to run the ball. 29 rushing attempts last week. So the volume is there. You can bank on volume. But much like Kamara, much like CMC, matchup isn't pristine. The Carolina Panthers defense has been pretty doggone good this year against the run. The Carolina Panthers, 407 yards allowed. I actually think that's way worse than I thought they were. So we're going to correct that live. We'll do it live and say, hey, this is the best spot to beat the Panthers. They're allowing 22.3 fantasy points per game. That's a little bit more league average-y. But they have faced some teams in the last couple weeks that maybe don't rely on their or don't have as strong of a run game as you know the Jaguars do last week. Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson. So do we play some volume again on Leonard Fournette and re-roll the dice here? I think it's possible at 6,400. I really want 20 plus from any running back I play. And this is just going to continue the theme of tough decisions. Joe Mixon, $6,100 on him. Him and Giovanni Bernard strike me as intriguing tournament plays. These are guys I've long stayed away from, but just because it's the Arizona Cardinals and because there are some big-time injuries on the team, Joe Ross hurt, doubtful for this one. John Ross. Why did I say Joe Ross? The pitcher. There's a pitcher named Joe Ross, I promise. And, of course, A.J. Green's still out. So Mixon's a little bit intriguing, and so is Giovanni Bernard, but there's nothing more than tournament dart throws. Aaron Jones becomes an idea. 7 targets last week. You guys saw what happened to Jamal Williams. A gruesome hit. That took him down. He's got an official Q tag on him, but man, it is really hard to expect Jamal Williams to play football anytime soon. He's in the concussion protocol. So if he's out, Aaron Jones has an opportunity to be the bell cow guy here, at least for this week at sub 6K. Targets out of the backfield is extremely, extremely juicy for DK and PPR. And in the last 3 weeks, no less than 15 fantasy points. So, and it's the game on the road against the Dallas Cowboys, who, in retrospect, did an okay job at holding Alvin Kamara to a low fantasy day. I think I trust Aaron Rodgers a little bit more than Teddy Bridgewater to spread defenses. And Aaron Jones probably floats to the top, right up there with David Johnson for me, for guys that seem a little bit safer points per dollar with a less range of outcomes in terms of floor versus ceiling. So Aaron Jones makes a lot of sense. Wayne Gallman is intriguing at 5,400. Not expecting 30 against the Minnesota Vikings, but what I liked the most last week, 7 targets. With that said, Golden Tate coming back this week. Sterling Shepard's there. Evan Ingram's there. Do we expect Daniel Jones to, I almost called him Chase Daniel. Why did I do that? Do we expect Daniel Jones to throw the ball 40 times so that everyone gets 7, 10, 11 targets? Probably not. So I'm a little bit more... and I was low on Wayne Gallman last week, unfortunately. I'm obviously a little bit lower on Wayne Gallman here against the Vikings defense as they play former coach Pat Schroeder. And then perusing a little bit more, Jordan Howard had a super fake game last week. I'm not chasing that. And that's probably it, man. So, yeah, I just had to like kind of speak out loud. Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, if you believe in it, Falcons being bad against pass catching running backs, that was a huge trend for them last season. Hasn't quite been the case this season. As a matter of fact, if you go to defensive versus position tab in the RunDFS.com VIP spreadsheet, the Falcons have given up the fewest passing yards or receiving yards to opposing running backs, but it could also just be a product of who they faced and lack of pass catching running backs. So if you think they're going to be porous against the pass catching running backs, eventually regressing to the mean. Carlos Hyde had 5 targets last week. Maybe falls into the end zone because I do like the Texans offense a lot more here than I've had in the last couple weeks. And then just keeping it moving here. Nothing really screaming at me. AP is 3,900. That's really, really low. And yeah, we're going to leave it at that, man. So I didn't feel confident and enough to sink my teeth into 3 straight plays without explaining my thoughts on a lot of people at the position. I think my 2 guys, points per dollar, David Johnson, Aaron Jones, and then we're kind of gambling on talent and volume in average to less than average to bad matchups. So just thought we would do that. Sorry if this video went a little bit long. Let me know who you guys like at the running back position. Leave a comment below. Do you like who I like? Do you dislike who I like? Would love to know. $25 PayPal giveaway. All you can do is be a subscriber, like the video, comment. If you got anything else for me, twitter.com/Gundacker Sportsman. Come have some fun with us in the VIP Discord. I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you guys. Good luck. God bless. Go win some money.